All right, people, we're here. It's the beginning of April, and oh no, I can smell an April Fool's joke coming. What are we reviewing today? Morbius, a movie that's been delayed how many times now? From Sony, who's intent on making the 2000 superhero movies back. Oh God, it starts Jared Leto. Okay, let's just get this one over with, Matt, Chris. Let's just get this one over with as quick as possible.
Oh man.
I can. Oh man, Chris, and we had been doing so well. We've been doing so well with picking this stuff to review. We'd actually been having fun with it. We'd actually been having some decent conversations. We thought that we'd left these types of movies behind in 2021. And now, of course, the last of the delays from I think I don't even remember when this movie was supposed to come out, but I'm like, wow. I remember when I first saw the reaction for this movie. I'm like, okay, so Venom made enough money that they're going to make more movies. I'm like, great. And what are they going to do? They're going to make a Morbius spinoff and they're going to have Jared Leto star in it. So it's like, I don't think this movie was being very positively received, like when it was first going to come out before it got delayed umpteen times. But like, I mean, should I even begin to ask, was there ever any sort of anticipation for this movie from either of you guys?
Yeah, for me there was.
Yeah, there
Really?
Thought
was
it
for
was
me too. Yeah.
Really? Okay, please explain because I'm confused even on that front as to why anyone would actually want to watch this movie.
simple to
Uh,
me. It's like for once it's not a generic comic book character. So it's not just some Cape Crusader whose uncle gives words of wisdom, then gets shot and killed, and he takes that with him. We've seen that so many times in so many different ways. It's actually someone who has like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. It borders on the paranormal, it borders on sci-fi, but he has super strength, but he's conflicted internally. Is he good? Is he evil? Like there's a lot here to play with. It's very rich and ripe for the picking. And not generic at all, not cookie cutter, not like, phase one of the MCU where every story was the same type of archetype story, but introducing a new character. So just, drag and drop out the parts. There was a lot here that was really interesting. And someone who used to read a lot of comics, I read a couple Morbius runs. Thought it was fun. It was a good time. And I didn't really like Marvel comics that much. I always felt that Marvel comics kind of assumed I wasn't intelligent, so they were afraid to use like bigger words or more artistic descriptions, whereas DC, they went for it, man. There was some pretty highbrow language in the DC comics I was reading. And so
Matt.
Morbius, I really enjoyed Morbius, but I did not enjoy this movie. What about you, Matt?
no, I echo that dearly because this movie doesn't have to play with the mouse, and that's the biggest thing that with the MCU is that these movies have formulas, and it seems like in the worst way, the Sony movies have found a formula, but not a positive one. But yeah,
That's so true.
That's a great way of putting it. That's a great way of putting it because I mean, I saw when they were gonna do Venom. I'm like, I was confused. I'm like, why are they doing this? I'm like, why are they doing spinoffs of like supporting characters? Like, why are they trying? They've essentially, it's crazy because Sony has essentially constructed an entire film franchise around the Joey formula, where they just take the side characters and have them do spinoff films. And I remember when the first Venom came out, still being just really confused as to what people enjoyed or saw in that movie, and really like how much money that movie made. It's like, it's really, really confusing, especially because that was originally supposed to be rated R. So it's like, wait, I'm confused. People are now cheering for when studios cut rated R superhero movies into PG-13 movies. I thought that was something that, we used to hate, but okay, I guess people are on board with it now. And then Venom comes out, does all that business, makes all that money, and I'm like, okay, I didn't think we could get much lower than the last couple of bad DC movies that we're getting. But when I saw that people could really just tolerate that, I'm like, okay, so they'll just take anything. They will take any sort of just recognition for their IP. Just, I feel like the only exception so far that people have like given like negative reception to as far as like the big adaptations of the IP, it's been the Suicide Squad and then the 2016 Ghostbusters. I feel like that was really it as far as movies that like, okay, they were both had some very critical negative reception while at the same time not doing well at the box office. But like, I mean, I guess it'll go to show the ultimate test of this movie is how much money it makes at the box office, and see ultimately if like kind of the Venom effect can go onto this movie. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna be like, okay, if it's an IP, people will watch it, I guess is kind of the moral of this story. But
Yeah,
speaking of
so with that being said, guys, welcome in. Good morning to everyone, wherever you're watching us across the entirety of the internet. This is the Talkin' TV podcast. This morning, of course, we're talking about Marvel's and Sony's newest blunder, Morbius. It is going to be a great morning. We're, of course, joined, as always, by our friend Matt, who we always seem to talk Cape Crusaders with. Matt of Basic Entertainment. Of course, guys, please go follow him anywhere you can find him. Basic Entertainment on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll link all of his links in the description at the end of this video. And of course, please follow us across all social media at Official Talkin' TV Podcast. Hit that follow button if you're watching live on Twitch. Hit that subscribe button if you found us on YouTube. Turn that bell on so you get notified whenever we post. And of course, hit the like button and really help us out on any of our videos or content that you watch. And we're available on all the different digital streaming platforms in audio format. That's Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, YouTube. So guys, check it out. We have a big show lined up for you this morning. We might not be the most excited about having to have watched this movie, but I'm really pumped to talk about this thing because there's nothing I love more than berating a terrible movie that assumes that I'm a 4-year-old, because I'm not. I'm an adult, and I don't like being treated like one. So, Dom, take us into your first topics out of the list of topics you've brought
Oh
here this
man,
morning.
I mean, see, there are critics that are gonna try and dissect the plot of this movie as thin as it is. There are people that are gonna try and break down like the rich and complex characters who are just like, yes, we're literally repeating other like previously terrible Sony movies by being like, I need the cure. No, you can't have it. Why? I can't give it to you for why not? Reasons. Because instead of just trying to explain it, I'm like, oh great, we're bringing back that trope. Awesome. And that's what this movie was. It was just a repeat series of trope after trope after trope after trope that I've seen 1.5 million times before. I couldn't even go 5 seconds into somewhat seriously appreciating Jared Leto, which I'll get to him in a little bit, but without just like another really bad trope. He literally has a line where he says, "You don't like me when I'm hungry." That I'm like, are you kidding me? We're going there. Okay. I thought that we were past this. I really thought that we were past this kind of filmmaking, you know? I'm not saying that the new stuff that we were getting was that much better, but hey, at the very least, we left this sort of stuff behind. And that's exactly what this was. It was a bland attempt at a somewhat interesting story. Like there were pieces of this where you could actually do something interesting, of course, with the whole brother thing and the whole, him going so far down the path of science that he's going to turn himself into a monster. I was half expecting Eminem's Godzilla to start playing as well, with the opening line. But yeah, that's kind of where you get this movie. And the sad part is that as much fun as you probably could have with a premise like this, I mean, it's a dude who literally turns himself into a vampire. I mean, the fact that he makes a Venom joke but not a Blade joke, I'm like, okay, that must have been a right itch situation right there. Because I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's like, it was not the stars comments notwithstanding what's it called? I'm pretty sure the stars comments notwithstanding that in the comics, Morbius does actually end up fighting Blade. So the obvious answer was right there. But yeah, I don't know. This is a movie that I had no interest wanting to watch going in. Had to watch it because of its IP affiliations. Watch it and then had somehow less interest coming out afterwards. I don't even know how that's possible to have less interest. At the very least, last year, Chris, when we saw I feel like the movie that we had the most fun roasting last year, that being Spiral, at the very least, there was stuff to talk about in that movie, So I guess that's why it brings me to the first topic, which is this really even worth talking about? Because I feel like it's one of the few movies that meets people's expectations exactly where they are. And that's really difficult for a movie to do, whether said expectations were good or bad. I don't know. Take it from there, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Matt start off on this one because Matt didn't speak quite as long, but he was also excited to have heard that this movie was being made. You just said when Dom asked us, did we even want to watch this? So why don't you take it away, Matt? I'm curious.
Yeah. So Morbius going in and just watching it, there's nothing to talk about. I mean, this movie was like confusing. The movie clocks in at what, 1 hour and 48 minutes, and it feels like 3 hours.
Not even a full 2 hours. Yeah.
It feels like 5 hours. It's shameless. It doesn't care. It's disjointed. This is the definition of a studio mandate movie. And I feel like when you have something like that, when like a Joss Whedon comes out, they actually are fun to talk about because there's bad moments in those movies, right? And there's a couple bad moments in here, but just so boring and so dull and just so kind of like crappy. It's not like a Venom crappy where it's like you can take stuff out of it. Tom Hardy's acting drunk and stuff, and you can just make fun of it. And here, it's like I'm watching paint dry. It so there's nothing. No, there's nothing really to talk about. Besides, those end credit scenes where those end credit scenes have to be the worst end credit scenes I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what's going on. I think we're talking more about the studio instead of the movie. Like what's going on in the studio, what are smoking, what are sniffing, not the
They're
movie
huffing.
itself.
They're huffing glue. This is the
Yeah.
sign of glue huffing.
Yeah.
It's past smoking and sniffing, Matt. It's
You
a whole
know-
new level of
The whole
madness.
the whole new nut,
See,
yeah.
this is where Marvel fucked up because Marvel fucked up by emboldening Sony. They not only were they so desperate to keep the rights of Spider-Man that they kind of said it's like, okay, we're gonna like bring stuff over from your other movies into us, and they were unfortunately included Venom into that. So now Sony thinks, okay, we can just do whatever we want because at the end of the day we can cross over into Marvel and have them redeem us. So now they've been given a pass now by the biggest studio. See, before they actually like had to sort of hold themselves to task. Now they're like, oh, we can just cross this over into any other generic Marvel movie that people will watch. Cool. Awesome, because obviously you have the very, very confusing post-credit scene, which we'll get to, of like him running into Vulture from Michael Keaton, who's apparently now in this universe. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this is where Marvel fucked up, because now Sony is ultimately convinced that they can put out movies of mediocre quality like this just in order to cross them over with Marvel, which I guess again it's like it's kind of a pick your poison depending on where you stand there, Chris. But like I feel like I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think to answer your initial question, like, is this movie worth talking about? I think it is for all the wrong reasons, like we're already doing. And I say wrong reasons only because, last I checked, the world of film criticism is supposed to be about actual film criticism. And I know YouTube
Supposed to
blurs
be.
the lines, but hey, like we're a bit of hybrids. We're like the fifth generation, fourth generation of film critics, and sometimes our conversations go this way because we kind of have the freedom of not having to be super beholden to the studios to get like that early, press write up in a paper or something. So this is where we get to have a little fun as like the hybrid film critic who put a camera in front of our faces and have like free form conversations and go and watch the theaters at the same time as normal audience members, no screeners or anything like that. It's kind of nice because you can say things like I'm about to say, and there's nothing to talk about in this movie as far as substance, plot, narrative, any term you want to use for the story we were given. There's really nothing there aside from just like someone sort of dusted off like an old like template that they had from phase 1 back when like we still printed paper, and someone was like, oh, like someone from Sony went over to Marvel and like got to do like a little tour. Maybe it was in that moment where Kevin Feige was like, yeah, you know what? I'll help you guys out a little bit. Like, I'll give you some advising, which, by the way, if this is the advising, Kevin Feige totally freaking sabotaged them, which is awesome, dude. I mean, it's
Right?
awesome. Like, Kevin
Right?
Feige literally went full on sleeper agent, went up in there and was like, oh, yeah, of course. Listen, you
Yeah.
give us Spider-Man, I'm going to help all your wildest dreams come true. Yeah, right. There's no friends in business. We just watched The Godfather yesterday morning. There's no friends in business. There's only interests. It's the same thing. And so like they were just lucky that their one Sony guy has like sleight of hand, like level 10, and he was able to get like that old script out the corner. And so that's how they even were able to pull this one off, because it was just so pathetic and so out of touch. We've progressed so far in the superhero genre. This just felt like a huge step backwards. And I'm going to throw it to something Professor Pat was saying, because I went and saw this with the professor, Matt.
Of course.
Now, Matt, one thing you need to know, Professor Pat will not podcast before 12 noon. You don't want to see Pat without his coffee. Anyways,
Oh,
I got to
no.
see
Oh,
Pat
no.
after we all cashed in our Regal points. Shout out to Regal for giving me that 95-cent giant ass seltzer. Pat didn't know you could get a seltzer, so he got a Pepsi Max, and he was so hopped up. The man was literally like after the show, like, yeah, that was like the worst movie I ever saw. And like as his heart is like pumping, and he's like, yeah, because you can imagine it, Tom.
Oh my God, this is amazing. This is already better than the movie itself. This story.
But what he said was so true. He's like, so they pretty much just threw away the one and only cool thing that could have happened, which was making him an anti-hero and then having him fight Blade. because now he's like
Yeah.
this nice guy who just wants to shake everyone's hands and save the world when that's not the character. So
Yeah.
that's like the only thing you can talk about from the narrative, but that's not like we're talking about it for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was about to say, you were talking about the opposite of the narrative. You know, the narrative that we could have gotten, not the narrative that we did, which was just another more Morbius, not more like not a good movie BS. Hey, it was a good attempt. It was a good attempt, but
What up,
yeah,
Luke?
yeah. Oh man, it's good
Going
to
on,
see you,
Luke?
dude. Oh man. Yeah, no, it's just instead we get the generic setup of, oh no, it's my brother who's evil. They literally ripped that from Amazing. They literally ripped the entire crux of their plot from Amazing Spider-Man 2, where it's like, hey, it's like, hey, I found a cure, but I need your blood. I can't give you my blood. Why not? Reasons. Okay, because once again, that's a trope that we bring that. That's a trope that we had to bring back so badly. You know, the trope of characters who want to help out other characters that are close to them but can't because they don't actually give a reason, and then said characters end up becoming villains. It's literally, we were literally making fun of this or at least Ned was, at least in Spider-Man No Way Home, when he's like, I promise I won't turn into a supervillain and become your enemy, you know, with the Matt Smith character. And then you've got, the generic, the generic English mentor. And you've got the hot assistant who's only there to be. I'm like, wow. I'm like, this movie actually brought back a character that is only there to be eye candy. I am amazed. I'm like, I thought that you couldn't get away with that in the age of wokeness today. I really thought that would be really a thing of the past. So it's like, I guess you could almost commend this movie for I'm like, wow, for when you really said you brought back all the generic things of the past, you really, really meant it. So I guess we're kind of like jumping ahead to my third point here, but I feel like it's as good a time as any. We're really trying to bring back the 2000 superhero stuff. Like, guys, was it just me? Am I missing something here? Am I like, what am I missing something about that 2000s period of superhero movies? What is it with all of these studios and trying to bring that back in some capacity? Why are we trying to bring back the dark lighting and barely being able to see anything so we can cover up for all the bad CG? Why are we bringing up for the the angsty loner that's just talking with a really weird voice because he thinks it actually adds character and looking out into the night sky? Why are we trying to bring all of these tropes back? Like, I thought that we were past these, you know, somebody answer that for me, please, because I'm legitimately confused here.
I think the tropes are definitely there, but putting names of these early 2000s movies with this movie is kind of a
Well, I'm
shame
not
in
talking about the
itself.
good ones. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about
Okay.
the good ones.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a bit
talking about like,
disrespectful, right, Matt?
yeah,
Yeah.
no. Well, I know.
I
Some
feel
good
that.
ones in the early
Even I
2000s.
see where your
feel
mind
that.
was going there, but I'm not talking about like the X-Men or the Spider-Man movies or any of those. And I'm not talking about the late 2000s movies either. They got bad. I'm talking about that period of the mid 2000s. I'm talking your Ang Lee Hulks. I'm talking your Ben Affleck Daredevils. I'm talking your as much beholden as I am to say, your Nick Cage Ghost Riders. Those movies, you know, that we got in the mid 2000s. That is what this movie reminded me of.
I mean,
So-
that's still kind of putting there on those movies, but I'll let it pass. But
So this is why I let this topic stand. Because Matt, I'm with you. I thought this was not. This wasn't a topic I would have come up with because I don't think. I think it's like selling short the era of. See, the way I see it is, this really didn't establish itself until the late to early to the early to mid 2010s. The superhero formula, the power that Marvel had. The 2000s, we were just sort of still throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks. Sure, you had successes like early with the Spider-Man, and then a little later with Chris Nolan's Batman trilogy, and there was a few things in between that didn't quite land, like Fan Four Stick and other things like that. But it was all in the pursuit of figuring out, okay, can this work? Like, we've seen it a few times now. We've had one or
Yeah.
two trilogies at this point, depending on where you're talking about. But like, is this here to stay? Is this a fad? Because there was very much still a changing of the guard, in my opinion, going on in blockbuster films at that point in time. And so that's why I don't think it's fair to compare it to like the 2000s films, only because I think in our comparison, talking about Morbius, which I think we all can agree is a very terrible movie, it kind of like takes a jab at those 2000s films and that era where I thought they were like the pioneers, you know? Like, I think the reason we're here is because of all the movies that succeeded in that time period, but also because of all the movies that failed. Because, you know, you need to figure out what's going to rise to the top and what's not.
Yeah, they're definitely taking chances back then. But with this one, it feels like even that talking about it's dated. I feel like this is dated, but still dated in its own era. Like even if this movie came out back then, I feel like it's still kind of like, what is this movie doing here? Now it does have those tropes, but it still feels like that. I feel like this movie should have just stayed delayed. I mean,
Yeah,
this is very
that was one of the things I was hoping for. I'm like, can they just never release this movie ever?
like, if we're
Because
being honest, the cutting room, there's a lot of stuff cut out and there's a lot of
yeah,
stuff cut in, and it just feels like a movie that's like was shot like 2 weeks ago, and they
yeah,
just barely put a final film, you know?
it's another one of those movies where it's like, yeah, this was just hacksawed to hell as far in the editing room, and and what was it was one of those movies where it's like, yeah, everyone kind of knew this was not going to be good from the minute that the trailer debuted.
And that's
But
the
let me
thing
also
too.
just say this,
Yeah.
because I mean, I think we've gotten to a point where everything is so big and so larger than life, and when it's not in the case of like a Joker or most recently a Matt Reeves Batman, it's still got this Arturist Oscar prestige factor. I mean, we've lost just the simplicity of an Iron Man or of, a Captain America, like just those first movies that established the characters. And I think there is a beauty to that phase one era. It's fun, it's simple, it's got moments that help you to fall in love with these characters. And you guys have known I started this podcast hating the MCU, and I definitely respect it now, although it's not entirely for me. There are still a lot of films in there that work, like that first Thor movie, and you kind of need those stories sometimes, especially with Sony trying to emulate the Marvel cinematic universe. And now there's talks of them having their Madame Web character who's going to be like a Doctor Strange, and so they're trying to go down that route, but they're in 2008 while Marvel's in 2022, so they need these sort of stories that follow the old school formula, the old school script to get up to where Marvel is. But I think there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it, and I think they just need to it feels like they are everyone knows they're behind when it comes to Marvel, and it feels like Warner Brothers is finally starting to wake up, where it's like, if we try and compete in that race, we're never going to catch up to them. So let's do our own thing. And so you've seen a Joker, which paved the way for a Matt Reeves Batman, which hopefully we can now start to, get those characters treated the way they should be treated. And this could have worked, but I just think if we're going to be making something for the wrong reasons, like in this case, in my opinion, I felt like this film was made in an attempt to catch up to Marvel, to cross a universe between Blade and Morbius, and then we know Blade's going to come into the Spider-Verse somehow, and they're all going to be connected and having fun and hanging out in the same movie, and finishing each other's lines, and who's going to date who, like the MCU. It's just not going to work if we're doing it from the wrong place, which is, oh shit, we're behind and we lost all this money for years because we never thought what Marvel was going to do was going to work. Now we're the ones with our, head in our hands because we screwed up. So let's just play catch up. People don't want like your scraps. People want to spend their hard-earned money on something that's actually worthwhile. So this could have been something. This could have been a contender, but it
Yeah,
unfortunately.
and you have and also too with Sony, it's like, why are you trying to play the coattails of Marvel? Why are you trying to do this? And it makes sense why they're
it's
trying to
because
make
they
that
already
money.
tried to do it and it didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
Hashtag Feige sabotage. I'm starting that thing.
Yeah, he definitely given some wrong advice, but it feels like it's embarrassing because it's like, Sony, can you just like do your own stuff? You know how Warner Bros. They sometimes they just let these directors just do them, and they come out with great films like Suicide Squad, Joker, Matt Reeves, Batman, and it's like Venom
Matt, I have a
movies,
question for you.
Morbius.
I got a question for you, Matt. So and you too, Dom.
Yeah.
But I want Matt's opinion on this first, just because I think I might already kind of know your take on it, Dom.
Okay.
So in the music industry right now, there's a big conversation about all these old classic rockers and if they should sell their catalog or if they should hold on to it. And so you have Bob Dylan, who just sold his catalog for like 300 million. You have Fleetwood Mac, who just sold their catalog for 150 million. And the argument is, okay, you get that quick paycheck up front and you set your family up for a few generations. But if you sell the rights over time, aren't you going to make more money than what you would make up front for that big paycheck? And so I think the real question is like, does Sony think they have a chance to eventually make more money than potentially selling it to Marvel, who's been trying to buy the freaking characters from them for years
Yeah.
now? trying to get a hold of it. Like,
I mean,
because I think they're losing money at this point, like
I think they're
shelling out.
losing
See,
money.
the thing with the classic rockers is they're not going to lose money on those songs. They might not make any
No.
more money if commercials stop using them, but they already paid for the album in the 70s, and they only serve to potentially make more money, or if commercials stop using classic rock music, make no more money. So maybe for them it's like, okay, well, at least let's get some guaranteed money, but they're not going to lose any money. But Sony keeps throwing all this money at actors, at costume designers, at set designers, at CG, which is for some reason still cost so much money when I don't
It's
understand how many
blurry. I can't see
YouTubers
what's going on.
yeah.
Yeah.
how many YouTubers make Hollywood effects on YouTube and show you how to
Like,
do it
it's
for
like
like
they
free.
waste
Way
all
better.
their money on these goddamn effects, and we can't even see them and
So-
appreciate them.
Yeah.
So like, what do you guys think? Like, is it pride? Like, is Sony messing up right now? Do you
Matt,
think there's hope
I'll
here?
let you answer
I don't
first.
think I don't think they just give a shit. Like, I'll be honest, I think they're just doing stuff and hopefully they gain money. And it showed in the trailer too how they did a pretty good bait switch with the Spider-Man references. Ooh, we got the Oscar building, we got Spider-Man, and none of that was in the trailer. None of that was in the movie. The director came out and said, I didn't put that there. So who put it there? Sony? Might be.
Yeah, no, it's
You know,
clearly
it's
clearly
that's shameful. They
Is
should be
it
ashamed of
spite?
themselves.
Are they
It-
just
it-
trying to spite the MCU? I
clearly
mean, what
pride.
is this?
It's clearly pride and spite. And I'll add a few more things to that theory. I think that what happened is that Kevin Feige did try to pose an idea to buy them out after, back in 2019 when that whole debacle happened. But Sony had already had money. Like, that's the thing. I think they had Venom. I think it was a 20th Century Fox thing originally, where they were going to just dump out the last of their IPs before they considered selling. Very similar to how when 20th Century Fox, they were just getting rid of Dark Phoenix and they were just trying to get rid of New Mutants before the merger with Disney happened. Before the pandemic. And I think that Disney and Kevin Feige tried to pose something similar to them, and then Venom actually made money. What's it called? Because that's the thing. That first Venom movie was a gigantic box office hit. And like that was almost like a Frozen where no one was expecting it to make money. So then they were like, oh no, we want to hold on to these characters and we might actually want Spider-Man back now that we find out, okay, we're actually like worth something again. And then so that's when they ended up making the multiverse No Way Home deal. Then the pandemic hits, obviously. And it's only been the movies that have happened since the pandemic came out that have kind of lost money, that being Venom 2 and now Morbius. But that first Venom made money. And so I think that it's that they're going to try and ride the coattails of that first Venom movie for as long as they possibly can. But in that case, they're just going to be beholden to the rest of the industry when the rest of the industry just stops making money on this sort of stuff. Because,
I mean, can you
they're
though with
still hurting.
Can you do
I don't know. That's the thing.
because Venom is like basically Spider-Man's Joker. That's a character that's gonna print money. That's just a popular big name character. And once people went to go saw it and saw it was pretty garbage, are they going to be interested for a Silk, a Madam Web, a whatever, a
Matt,
D-tier
all that I've
Spider-Man
learned
character?
in the last,
I don't
all that I've
think
learned
so.
in the last couple of years is never underestimate the power of comic book fans. Never underestimate the power of comic book fans.
I don't know. I think if
look, only time will tell as far as
Three-
that goes. We'll see if any.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying is we'll see if any of these movies going forward do make money. But I'm saying they're gonna try and rest their laurels on Venom, even if none of their movies make money. But the question is going to be what will happen when they get to a certain point where they have all these movies coming out with Kraven and Madam Web, and they'll have another Spider-Verse movie, but we'll see if any of them actually like make money is the question.
Like I personally
go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
I tapped out. I'm not watching no more of these Sony live action movies. I saw the end credit scene. I think that's all I need. I can bootleg it, or excuse me, I'm not gonna bootleg it. I'm gonna rent it out in VOD in a couple months, whatever. I'm not gonna go out ahead and waste my money on the live action Sony stuff anymore. This is their strike. I feel like this could have been the movie. I know Venom, Let There Be Carnage, they were gonna play into the first one more. I know that was gonna happen, but Morbius is like, really, like this, like we need to give him an antagonist. How come it could have just been a traditional horror movie where he has to deal with the dilemma himself? No, but we need to have a copy of the character, different color.
That's another trope that I'm like, oh great, we had to bring that one back.
like
Gotta
you
bring
guys
that
can't
one
even do
back.
that for themselves. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
The like I said, Matt, I was counting them. I was counting the points. I'm like, okay, saw that in this movie, saw that in this movie, saw that. I was
Yeah.
counting them like throughout as it was going on.
Yeah.
Like with they even had the slow motion CG ripple effects from they were even ripping off from their own movies. That's how bad this was. They were even
Yeah.
ripping it off with the slow motion ripple things whenever they ran super fast. I'm like, wow, that looks exactly like Venom. Remember at the end of the first movie when they fought each other and like the goo exploded off each other in slow mo. I'm like, what is going
Yeah,
on
that is
here?
true.
But yeah,
Yeah,
before we get into the
I just wanted to ask you guys real quick, because when I went to my theater and my movie theater by us, the weekend of Batman, it was packed. You know, it's in a mall, and you had to park like 4 stores over, which is unheard of to get a parking spot. It's only unheard of on a normal week where there's not a new movie out. You know, like a superhero movie out. So I thought last night it'd be the same thing because every time I go to the theater, it was for No Way Home, which I had to park like 5 stores over. That thing was so slammed. For Batman, I parked like 4 stores over. Hell, even Fast and Furious 9, I had to park a few stores over than the actual designated movie parking lot. But for this movie, it felt like a slow night at the movies. There was about 10 of us in the theater. There was no
Like
one
right in front
there,
of
you
movies,
know.
right next
yes,
to the
Like,
stairs.
what about you
right.
guys? Was it pretty empty? I mean,
I watched
Mine
it.
was pretty
I
full a
watched
little
it at
bit.
home.
was
So
it?
yeah,
Okay. I went Friday night too, you know. That's like a hot button night.
yeah,
That's
that's
like
a
the
hot button
official
night.
first
Yeah,
opening night, not the Thursday soft open.
yeah.
It's like the first night of the weekend. People get off, they go see the movie. It was dead,
Yeah.
completely
I
dead.
mean, look, April's always kind of a dead month. Like when I talk about dead months for movie theaters, even before pandemic times, when you could actually watch movies, it was always January, April, and then or circa September and October. That it's like, yeah, good luck actually finding like a movie that's a movie theater that's gonna have like more than 10 people in it. And if they thought that Morbius was gonna happen, well, they were dead wrong. Is all that I'm gonna say because yeah, I mean, you just look at the rest of the movies that are coming out this month. I mean, you got some interesting ones specifically at the end of the month, but yeah, no, it's people typically do not go to the
I think
movies
people,
for whatever
I think
reason.
people a lot. I think a lot of people are still kind of confused. I don't want to say like us, but there is some people who are like, oh, is this the MCU? It has a Marvel logo. I think people still get bamboozled by that, and definitely after No
Yeah,
Way Home, they
yeah.
kind of like, oh, is this gonna have Spider-Man in it?
My friend saw the Marvel logo pop up before we watched Venom Let There Be Carnage, but it turned out the reason why, and I figured it out immediately, but they were full bad. It turned out the reason why is because my theater screwed up and started playing Shang-Chi instead of Venom 2. But
Oh wow.
I realized that immediately, but my friends fell hook, line, and sinker. They're like, Venom's a Marvel movie. I'm like, it's not an MCU movie. I'm like, if that was Venom, it would have the Sony logo. And then Shang-Chi started playing. And I'm like, what do you know? It's almost like I'm right. It's almost like I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing here. But real quick,
Wow.
before we get on to the final topic, I wanted to talk about Jared Leto for a second and just a fascinating career that he's been making for himself these last couple of years. Chris, you've had an interesting history / relationship with Jared Leto, and that you've shared with me. I was wondering if you could share your Jared Leto take with the Talking TV audience.
Sure, yeah. I think the best thing he's ever done is 30 Seconds to Mars. They are a phenomenal band. Their hits are timeless. He writes arena rock equivalent to the likes of U2, which is going to go down in the history books as, rock and roll bangers. And for some reason, he is afraid to do what he's best at. It's really weird to me. It's like all my life I wanted to be a rock star and so this guy gets to be one, but for some reason chooses not to be. It's really weird because he's an amazing singer. They put on one hell of a live show and they write songs that are rock songs that get played in pop airwaves. No matter what album they do, they have at least one hit as a rock band that goes on pop tracks, pop radio stations. They know what they're doing. So just stop because, you know, get a better agent, first of all, because I do think he's a good actor. In all seriousness, I do think he's a good actor.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has the right people or for him the sense to pick the roles that work for him anymore.
Yeah.
I think his early career was amazing, and that's why he wants to keep acting. I get it, but I'm just saying, like, dude, your bandmates, I don't know how they're okay with this unless they're just laughing on their freaking couches made of money, because that's what that band does. That band prints more money than our government, dude. Like, they are absolutely incredible. They
Put his brother doing it, so I'd assume that it's kind of they have more of a more of a connective relationship than just other regular bandmates that would probably be as annoyed by them. But I don't know. Like I said, that's more your
Yeah.
field.
Well, look at Oasis. That's two brothers, and they broke up for like 12 years, and they hate each other.
Yeah, true.
But anyways,
true.
I mean, look, they probably have a good relationship, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's weird to me. Do what you're best at, man.
Yeah, I don't
Just
know.
sing.
I've got such a complicated relationship with Jared Leto because I don't think there's another actor in Hollywood that I despise more as a person versus who I really, really like as an actor. Because every single time I watch a movie with him in it, I'm expecting to hate him, and then he ends up being one of the best parts. It's like such a weird like conundrum. I can't really explain it because obviously his behind the scenes antics are so publicly like made effective. I've heard stories about like kind of how kind of like pretentious he is towards fans just in general, and like some of the weird stuff that he does. And now I'm convinced, like after seeing him in this movie and then watching him in Panic Room only a couple weeks ago, and those movies are literally a 20-year difference apart. And I'm like, okay, so my whole Hollywood being comprised of vampires theory is really, really starting to pan out. And I'm like, okay, so they were playing it a little bit on the nose by having him play an actual vampire-esque figure in this movie. But yeah, no, I've consistently said it. I'm like, it's a little bit of a strange thing when my favorite Jared Leto performances are movies where he either gets brutally murdered or just gets the shit beat out of him. And then you have the last couple of movies that he's been doing, which have comprised of, in order, Suicide Squad, Blade Runner 2049, which is fantastic, but he's the worst part about. The Little Things, which he's terrible movie, but he is surprisingly the best part about. And last year's House of Gucci, where he gave probably the best impression of Mario I think I've ever seen in live action ever. The problem is that it just made that movie more hammed up and ridiculous than it absolutely needed to be. But hey, at the very least, he like was really trying to go for something. You know, he's always trying to do something unique with his performances. And I guess the funniest, the irony of this is like one of the first times where he's like acting semi-normally or as normal as you can possibly for Jared Leto. But I don't know, Matt, you have any crazy Jared Leto takes?
No, it's not. This role is not kind of like out of the ordinary where he likes to do. But I think this is more of a visual performance because the dude looks like a vampire. I mean, straight up, he looks like a vampire. So I thought,
Matt, I'm telling you, watch Panic Room. It is nuts. Like there's no age difference, none at all between that movie and this movie.
And yeah, it is like the guy, you know, he like this is gonna be a great this is a great casting, but I mean he's not in the movie, he's not horrible, but he is in a bad movie. So it's pretty funny now that he's kind of like equaling the odds of being in one bad DC movie and he's going to Marvel and making a bad Marvel movie. So he's found that balance there, and I'm happy for him that he found some type of achievement on that. That's gonna be in the Wikipedia for being in bad movies.
That is pretty funny. And I gotta say, I agree
the worst
with you, Matt.
DC movie and one of the worst Marvel movies because Marvel's had a lot of bad movies.
One thing I will say, while I am more of a fan of his music than his acting career, I mean, Requiem for a Dream, incredible.
Yep.
The dude can clearly act. I just think he makes bad choices, and it sucks that a lot of the times he's easy to blame because of how much of a stain his resume has become lately.
Yeah.
He's easy to blame when a movie goes wrong. But I mean, really, all these actors did their best. Like they gave them nothing to work with here.
It's
his role in Suicide Squad 2016, he was given nothing to work with. He's just oftentimes just the easy scapegoat, it seems.
Yeah. I will say that, like, kind of the other really confusing thing is how many, like, surprisingly great performances there are in this movie. Like, Matt Smith is really just going for it in all the scenes where he's, like, you know, gotta be deliciously evil. Jared Harris, even as, like, the generic mentor figure, is still great because it's Jared Harris and he fucking kicks ass in any movie role that he's in. The only parts that I thought were, like, even as much as they were trying, and I do like both these guys, Tyrese Gibson and Al Madrigal as the two cops. I'm like,
what was he doing?
I'm like, great.
So unneeded.
I'm like, great. So
I forgot he was in the movie.
So we're bringing back Law and Order too. Also, apparently there was a detail there that one of Tyrese Gibson's arms was bionicle, and I'm like, well, what? Well, okay. I'm like, so you're gonna hype that up? We're gonna at least see him use it, right? Nope, doesn't even get to use it. I'm like, what the hell, dude? And also, it's like, and I love how too they're trying to like do the Lethal Weapon thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna do the tired and formula. Oh, the one cop is serious and the other one is comical. And I'm like, you're gonna have Tyrese Gibson in a movie who is known for being loud and funny. And at least he's made his entire career based off of that. You're gonna have him in there as the straight dude who's just talking like this so generically the entire time. I'm like, really? You're gonna waste him like that? Okay. And that was just a subplot in the movie that we just didn't need. But also, real quick, I just wanted to say one thing. So how many direct ripoffs of other superhero movies that had come out recently did you guys catch? Because I've got at least 4.
Let's hear them.
So I got You Don't Like Me When I'm Hungry. That's the Hulk. easily. You know, when you have like the freaking the slow motion like things like where he's like slow mo like dodging bullets at the beginning. I'm like, okay, so that's the Matrix. The way that like kind of the CG enveloped them, I'm like, okay, that's Venom. And then what was the fourth one?
He also said, "I am Venom."
He did say, "I am Venom," exactly. Oh, and
Which
then
is
the
so
other big,
dumb.
yeah. Well, of course they had to reference it because it's like, oh, remember that thing in San Francisco last year? I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So that's what we're doing here. And then the other, my favorite one. This is easily my favorite one. Is when Matt Smith is begging him for the cure. It's like, oh, it's Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Dane DeHaan as Harry. Okay, I was literally listing these off, and my friends who I was watching this with were all laughing their asses off because I was just 100% right all the time as we were just commenting on it, and I was just like, I'm like, how is any of this like happening? And my one friend was like, bro, I'm so bored already, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, if the non-movie guy is bored,
what about the Batman Begins reference?
that too, that was the other one that I was
They
forgetting.
took like I think they actually took
the
Hans
score.
Zimmer's score.
They
Yeah,
definitely took Hans Zimmer's score.
that was so
They did.
bad, dude. That
I
was so
was
shameless.
He was standing in the vent tank. I'm like, wow, this movie really does not give a fuck.
That was a good scene because it reminded me of a good movie. When I was in theaters, I was like, oh yeah, Batman Begins. Remember that? That was really good.
Remember when superhero movies can actually be good?
This isn't.
Enjoyable.
Oh my god! All right, guys. I don't know what else.
Oh
we can
man,
say.
Matt, you
I don't know what
saved
else
me.
we can say.
You saved me there. That was great. That was the one I was forgetting. I thought there was 5, but I couldn't remember what it was. Yeah. So
Closing thoughts, star ratings.
I don't know, Chris. Are there any other references you caught?
No. But I did catch myself looking at my phone a lot.
I was confused.
That's about it. So with that being said, guys, let's wrap this thing up. Let's do what Morbius didn't know how to do, and let's stick to the script and make sure that we have a nice, tight, complete feeling podcast here, not drag anything out longer than it has to be. So with that being said, thank you guys again so much. This was another episode of the Talking TV
Oh wait,
podcast.
you're not even gonna give star ratings?
We are. Let me get there.
Okay,
Let me work my thing, man.
Okay.
This is another episode of the Talking TV podcast. We appreciate you guys being here with us this morning. Of course, please follow us on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, hit the like button, turn that bell on for notifications, and do the same for our guest, Matt, who is about to give you his star ratings. But before he does that, go to his Instagram, his Facebook, his Twitter, his YouTube channel, and just interface with him there. Subscribe, follow, like, retweet, whatever the thing is that you can do on that social media. Help him out because he makes great content. Matt, final thoughts and star ratings, man. Morbius. We're thrown into the...
Yeah, Morbius is a bad fast food place. You're going in drive-thru, you're going to a bad fast food, and they messed up your order. They forgot the meat. And you're like, damn, I got burnt. I can't go back and play because they got my money. You can't return a fast food object. So yeah, so if I could give Morbius a star rating, I will give it 0. There's no star ratings. It's blank. There's nothing here to salvage. It's right there next to Fan 4 Stick. It probably is even worse than Fan 4 Stick. Yeah, I want my money back.
It's definitely down there. Definitely
it is
down
worse.
there. Yeah. Chris, your final thoughts, star ratings.
Yeah, final thoughts are I want my money back. How many words is that? I want my money back. That's 5 words. That's
5
all
words.
I can give this movie. I want my money back. And it is a 0.5 on the star rating, only because the actors did do a decent job, I felt. They just were given 0 to work with. So the fact that I only checked my phone about 10 times, it could have been 20. And so that's
definitely.
That's about it. Dom, what about you?
There's only so much you can do during a movie that is an hour and 45-minute runtime. And then when I went to watch it on the site that I watched it on, it was like, oh, it was only an hour 38. Oh no, this movie. I'm like, so that extra like 10 minutes was just the credits. I'm like, oh no, like I don't know. It's crazy because it's bad because when people want shorter content just in general, that I come to expect like longer content for superhero movies. Like if it's shorter than 2 hours, I'm like, oh, something got seriously messed up here. It was the same as Venom 2. It's the same with this one, guys. There is absolutely nothing to work with here, but I feel like that should have been apparent from the get-go because again, this was a movie that I feel like none of us had any expectations for, even from the trailer. This is once again Sony's desperate attempt in order to try and ride Marvel's coattails, only now for whatever reason their movies are making money. But hopefully, the only thing that I can say to people is please ensure, do what you did so well last year, which was just not going out to a theater at all, and do that for this movie. Do not go to a theater to watch this. Do not pay any money to watch this movie at all. I'll give it like 1.5 stars, just because I was like mildly entertained by how bad it was at some points. Like there were certain points where like it was getting to like a so bad, so good area. Luke, we absolutely are going to be doing that next weekend. I can't wait, because that's Michael Bay, who say what people look, that movies have gotten bad when Michael Bay movies are starting to become critically acclaimed again. Like if Michael Bay movies are starting to become critically acclaimed again, and I love Bay more than anybody else, that is a problem. Like we are truly in the end times for movies. Is the crazy part. But with that being said, yeah, 1.5 out of 5 stars. That's all I can give this. People, this is a blast. We did what it is that we do every time, which is we turn shit into gold, and we made a fun we had a fun conversation around a bad movie. This is an absolute blast. Matt, where can the good people follow you?
Yeah, you guys can go follow me on YouTube at Basic Entertainment and on TikTok at Basic Entertain, providing all geeky content for you on a daily basis. Guys, it was thanks for, I invited myself into this. I gotta stick to my formula and be here for it, no matter how bad it or good it is. Comic
Dude, you're
movies
always
gonna
welcome.
be here for.
You're always welcome for the comic book movies, dude.
And please go
Always.
follow Matt. We will toss his links in the descriptions wherever you may be listening to this. So please go and support his channel and all of his efforts.
100%. And Chris, where can they listen to your new albums if and when you ever actually put them out?
Yeah, I'm recording more drums next weekend, working on finishing up my new music, but that's okay because music isn't as zeitgeisty or as in the moment as film. So I have albums, plethora of them, on streaming already, which you can find at Christian Evanko. Evanko spelled Evanko, and they're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Music, YouTube Music, all those giant companies that suck our souls and our money, as well as some smaller outlets like SoundCloud, Breaker, all the places. I'm available on all of those outlets. Please go follow and subscribe or whatever you do on each of those streaming services. I know they have interface options that don't necessarily matter as much, but if you want to know when I post my new music, well, find me on my social media. It's at Christian Evanko. Again, Evanko spelled Evanko. I kept it nice and simple for y'all. I really hope you can find me and follow me there. It'd be greatly appreciated. And I also would appreciate it if you'd go follow my co-host, Dom, aka Rizzy, aka the Movie Nerd. Dom, where can they find you, man?
At Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, and also be sure to follow the official Talkin' TV podcast across all social media platforms. We'll be back next week to talk a much better movie, hopefully. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time.